Hi everybody, thanks for joining us again. For this part of our Summer Lent Fasting Series, we're joining you back where we started, here at the prayer chapel at Regina Caeli Clinic. But I'm actually going to be inviting you first into my kitchen to teach you an awesome meat-free, high-protein recipe. And then we're going to finish out the series meeting with a very special person from our local community who has lots of great thoughts on how to incorporate fasting in the home with motherhood, children, and the family. So we can't wait to get started. I'll see you when we're done. Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining us again for our Summer Lent Fasting mini-series. So today I've invited you into my kitchen and I'm going to be showing you one of our most favorite high-protein meal recipes, spaghetti carbonara. This is an awesome meal. It's super high in protein, super high in fat content, so it definitely achieves that slow burn of energy that you want for fasting. So this recipe you can do either with meat or without meat. I'm going to be showing you the version today that omits bacon. Shock. So this meal is great because it's so rich and creamy and delicious, and typically my husband and I on Fridays when we're having a period of fasting, we won't eat all day, and so by the time we arrive at dinner we're ready for a really hearty meal. Now with Kiara's advice from the nutrition segment of the series, she would probably recommend having this as more of an early lunch, and you could easily do that because it definitely checks all the boxes for that slow burning, high protein, high fat meal. So what I've done is a little while ago I cooked up some bacon. It was about 1.25 pounds of bacon. I've set the bacon aside so that we can have BLT wraps for lunch tomorrow, but we're going to use the bacon grease to cook this dish in. Now if you're a person who doesn't want to use bacon grease on a Friday, that's completely understandable. I would just recommend using some sort of a fat that is solid at room temperature because it's going to lend to the texture of the sauce. So at first what we're going to do is we're going to start by sauteing some diced onions in the bacon grease. Now I know my Italian brothers and sisters are probably very upset about this because typically spaghetti carbonara does not use onions, but we're doing this as a fasting series, and so we want to take advantage of the food that we're eating. And so if we can add some fiber in easily with some yummy sauteed onions, we're gonna do it. So that's what I would recommend, especially if you're cutting out the bacon from this recipe. Now, if you are using the bacon in this recipe, don't worry about the onions. It doesn't need that flavor. And so let's get to it. Prior to sauteing the onion, we'll gather the ingredients for our recipe. We'll use 1.5 onions diced, 1 cup of grated Pecorino Romano cheese, 12 eggs, and 1.5 pounds of spaghetti. All right, friends, so I've added the onions into the bacon grease, and let me tell you, there is no smell in the entire world like sauteing onions and bacon. I wish I could send it to you over this video. Unfortunately, you'll have to experience it for yourselves. But you're going to want to cook these onions until they begin to become translucent. So we started the onion sauteing in the bacon grease, and in the meantime we're going to start a pot of water boiling for our pasta. Now I'm using about 1.5 pounds of pasta because my family loves to eat this as leftovers. It's a huge crowd pleaser. So we're doing about 1.5 pounds of pasta tonight. Now if you're adding the bacon into this recipe, you don't need to heavily salt the pasta water. If you're omitting the bacon and just using the bacon grease to cook it, then you're going to want to salt the pasta water. So let's get that started. So now, as your pasta water is boiling and your onions are cooking, we're going to start to prepare the sauce, which is all eggs and cheese. That's why this recipe is so high protein. So for 1.5 pounds of pasta, I'm going to use a whole dozen eggs. So 2 of those eggs are going to be full eggs, and the remaining 10 are going to be just egg yolks. If you were doing just 1 pound of pasta, you could easily just do 6 eggs with 1 full egg and 5 egg yolks. For separating the egg yolks, you're going to want to have a bowl for the yolks and a bowl for the whites. Be prepared so that you don't accidentally dump the whole egg into the bowl that you're using to make your sauce. Okay, so now we've got all of our egg yolks and our 2 full eggs in our bowl. We've separated all of our egg whites, and you can actually set the egg whites aside to add into other meals to up the protein content of your other meals. Kiara actually has a recommendation of mixing it in with oatmeal in the morning, which I think is brilliant to kind of hide some extra protein in a normal child's breakfast, especially for a child who doesn't like eggs. So you're going to use a whisk, and this is important for this particular type of sauce, to use a whisk, and you're just going to fluff up your eggs a little bit using the whisk. And then we're going to incorporate our Pecorino Romano cheese into this egg bowl. I like to use all Pecorino Romano cheese because we have dairy sensitivities in our home, and if it's authentic Pecorino Romano, it's made with sheep's milk, and so the little bellies tolerate it a lot better than cow's milk. So I use about a cup with this recipe, but this is really something where you can just kind of achieve the sort of texture of sauce that you want, bearing in mind that it's going to fully coat the pasta. So we add our cheese directly into our eggs, and we, again, using our whisk, we just mix that around until it becomes nice and smooth and creamy. Now, if this looks too thick with the Pecorino Romano cheese, you can always add in some additional egg yolks. It's totally up to you. You can really make this what you want it to be. If you didn't want to use all Pecorino Romano cheese, you could also use Parmesan grated. So our sauce is mixed and it's nice and creamy, and our onions have finished. They're slightly caramelized. I went a little past translucent. That's okay. We love the flavor of the caramelized onions in this dish. And our pasta is cooking. It's just about done. Just before it's done, you're going to reserve some pasta water. And I do this by simply dipping a 2-cup measuring cup into the boiling pasta right before I drain it. And then we set this aside, and that's going to be truly the magic ingredient of this sauce. It makes everything so smooth and silky and creamy. So once the pasta is done, we'll do that. So our pasta is just about done here. So I'm going to just reserve some pasta water and save this aside for when we need it. I'm also going to get some peas started because my family loves peas. There's something about a creamy, cheesy pasta that just pairs really well with peas. We typically eat it with those, but you could pair it with any vegetable you want. Broccoli, asparagus, anything like that would be great. Some of my family members mix the peas in with the spaghetti carbonara, and some have it on the side. So our pasta is done but al dente, so I'm going to add it into our onions. And as I add it, I'm going to allow it to stay pretty wet with the pasta water. I'm not going to worry about draining all of it off, but I am just going to scoop the pasta directly into the onions. Pasta has been added to the onions, and we're going to thoroughly incorporate the bacon grease and onions into the pasta until all of it is coated. The onions and bacon grease have been fully incorporated into the pasta, and it's all pretty evenly coated. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our egg and cheese sauce, and we're going to add it quickly into the spaghetti and mix it, leaving very little time for it to set. If you leave it too long, it will become scrambled eggs rather than a delicious, yummy, creamy sauce. So you've got to work quickly. You can see that the eggs and cheese are tempering, but they're not scrambled. They're just becoming a very delicious, creamy sauce. So this sauce, as it sits, is going to become pretty thick. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the reserved pasta water and add some of that in. You can add as much or as little reserved pasta water as you want. My family likes this to be a pretty creamy sauce, so we might go a little heavy. And the pasta water, because it's starchy, will thicken as it sits as well. But it kind of makes this a silky dish. At this point, you can also season with salt and pepper to taste, heavy on the pepper. And that's pretty much it. It's going to make you feel like a 5-star chef. It's super fast to throw together and very high in protein, so it's going to last you maybe half a day worth of time that you would otherwise be hungry. When all is said and done, this meal for each serving does have about 30 grams of protein per serving, so it's awesome for that slow burn. Also, before I store it away, because my family likes to eat this for leftovers, I add a little bit more pasta water in so that it's still a little bit more liquidy in storage, so that when we reheat it in our cast iron pan, it doesn't get dried out. So hold on to that pasta water. It's the best ingredient. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Take care. Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining us today on our last segment of our Summer Lent Fasting Series. So today I have with us somebody who is another pillar in our community, and certainly somebody who I look up very much to as far as everything motherhood and homesteading and homeschooling. So this is my friend Sam Pelletier. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So I was just hoping you could talk to us about, or to me about, what fasting looks like in your home with your children.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was anxious to answer this question on video because I'm still in the very thick of it. My oldest is 15 and a half, and my youngest is just a year old. And so I always hesitate to give any sort of mothering advice, especially recorded, because I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know how it's going to turn out. But I can tell you what's kind of been the case for us for a number of years. So we actually became Catholic in 2018. So our 3 oldest were like 7, 5, and 7, 6, and 5, something like that, when we became Catholic. And now we have 7 children. And so it was a little bit of a learning curve because we weren't Catholic, so we weren't used to, we had grown up in the evangelical movement, and so fasting was not unheard of, but it wasn't a regular part of our experience. Not cyclically, not there was no time of communal fasting together like we do have in the Catholic Church. So we have figured it out as we've gone, and I actually in preparation for this conversation asked my older kids about their perspectives on how fasting has gone in our family, because I hadn't actually asked them. We've done this for a lot of years now, but I realized I hadn't actually really asked them what has their experience been. So I guess I don't know how to start. I guess we fast as a family in a handful of different ways and different times. So I guess when we fast is the first thing I would say. We obviously we observe the Eucharistic fast on Sundays. All of our children that are old enough to receive will observe that. We fast during Lent and during Advent. We also try to fast on vigil days, so the days before leading up to great feasts like Easter, Christmas, All Saints. That's actually one of my favorites, and we're not going to get into those details, but fasting and observing Hallowtide is one of my favorites, because it's such a Catholic thing, but it's also completely different than the rest of the world around us is participating in.
In complete opposition to the candy and
So, and then the other thing that we've been learning about, and we definitely haven't implemented officially or regularly, but we're kind of, everything's just a slow process, is Ember Days. And I don't know if you've come across those, but it's such a cool concept, and just in a very practical sense, it just really makes sense, which I find is the case with most things that the church has, held in tradition. So those are 4 sets of 3 days, about every quarter during the year. There is one right after Ash Wednesday, so it's Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. There's one right after Ash Wednesday, one after Pentecost, one after the feast of the Exaltation of the Cross, and then one after St. Lucy's Day. So it really is about every quarter, and those are just really great times to reset. I know you and I have talked about how after these long seasons of feasting, like Christmas and Eastertide, sometimes things can start to feel a little
loosey goosey.
A little loosey-goosey.
You need to rein it in.
You just kind of you need to rein it in and refocus your prayer and your intentions. So those are basically the times I would say that we fast.
And those are beautiful too, because they so tie in with the season, and so it's really a good preparation for the gifts of the season ahead.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people will set, sort of goals or intentions. It's almost like, the freshness of the new school year or New Year's Day, and you get that like restart. It's almost like that, only it's quarterly, and you don't have to wait until the end of the year or the next liturgical season. So we really have I've been doing more looking into those. We haven't really implemented that as a full family yet, but we're working on that. So I would say the way that we've implemented fasting, usually it starts, especially with the seasons like Lent and Advent. My husband and I will sit down and have a conversation about what we want to establish as sort of the plan as a family. We usually approach it as individuals. Obviously, we each have our own individual thing or things or focuses of that time of fasting. Whether it's something we're giving up or taking it. But then we also establish things as a family so that we have some common ground sort of culturally in our home. That way we're all sort of on the same page. So for us, oftentimes it looks like so for Lent especially, because it's at the end of, or not in New Hampshire, it's not the end of winter, but sometimes I suppose. We've been celebrating for Christmas a lot. We are inside, it's cold, it's dark. There's a lot of comfort food happening. There's a lot of screens and movies and those are all good things. They're not bad, but it's a good time for us to reorder, our priorities, our time, the way we're using our time. And really there's like practical sides to fasting, and then there's the spiritual sides, and there's both. They're good things on both sides. So it's okay for a fast to be practical, in the sense of it's not spiritual to say, hey, we need less screen time or we need less sugar, because really what that is it's a detachment. So we're just reordering and really reattaching ourselves, and of being aware of our desire for those things helps us to really understand that we are created with this desire, but it's only going to be fulfilled in God. So oftentimes in Lent it's screens and sugar for us, for our family, as kind of the baseline. For a couple of my kids, they've given up things like listening to music, or that's been a big one. I think one of the things we try to encourage is not so much just trying to come up with something that you can do easily, that you think that you can come up with the power or the determination to follow through on, but it's really about, what are you doing with your time right now? How are you spending your days? And where do you need to cut back or completely eliminate so that you can make space? Making space and making room for quiet, especially I think with entertainment for kids is that's a good place to start. And it doesn't have to be extreme. You don't have to like rip the TV off the wall. but maybe no TV during the day. Or if maybe it's no TV until there's a movie night on the weekend or something. But just making space for quiet. It's a good thing practically, but it's also a good thing for them spiritually.
Absolutely. Well, that's so beautiful. And I know a couple of your kids also, even though they're not of the age to participate in the church prescribed food fasting, also just feel called to do that sometimes too, which I think is so beautiful. Just, it seems like you guys have set up a good you lay a good foundation of the reason why you're doing the fasting, so they feel called to participate even further than you would ask them to do. So that's so beautiful.
I think that so our kids, like I said, they range from 15 down to 1, and there are some things like sugar is an easy one. We can kind of do it across the board. But there are, so on days of like Ash Wednesday or Good Friday, feasts like the vigil days before feasts, we do observe them as a family. So even the littler kids, if we're fasting, for Good Friday, they will have their own sort of version of that. So we're not starving our children.
Of course.
And of course that there's allowances, and you have to make your own decisions about that. But usually it looks like some kind of unexciting breakfast, like sort of not sweetened oatmeal or something simple. Yeah. Or maybe it's just a big plate of eggs. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And then it's just kind of, and then we don't do snacks. So that's a way that I kind of implement and help the littler kids. Obviously the little ones don't quite understand it, and if they need something, they'll get something. Yes. But especially like our 5 and 7-year-old this year, they're capable of not having a snack and saying, no, you have to wait until the next meal. And actually it starts a great conversation, because it's a really easy thing to say, I know you're hungry, and it's okay to be a little uncomfortable. And that discomfort, you can kind of think about how you feel, and you're going to eat in an hour or two. Yeah. But think about, the discomfort of maybe Jesus on the cross, or think about, just like you're going to be okay. But you can take this time and realize you're hungry, and actually they don't have any understanding of what it means to hunger for God, that their hearts are shaped to hunger after him. Yes. But if they hear that year after year, as they're growing up, at some point it starts to take root. And I think that's one of the things I was encouraged about when I talked to my kids this week about it, the older kids. Because they've said, there was a lot of years where it just kind of felt like rules. And it didn't really feel like it was a spiritual thing. But my oldest is 15 this year, and he said, but this was one of the first years where I felt like I actually had the muscle, like the muscle memory to deny myself for things, and to, when I wasn't at home, or I was with, in an environment where I could have easily, had something, had a treat or something, I could choose not to. And I kind of get it more than I do now. He's like, I don't know if I still get it fully, and I don't know if I get it fully either. Right. Yeah. But I think one of the things as a mom is just creating a space where they're going to run up against boundary. We do that for everything, right? We come up with boundaries not as the end all, but as a way to help them understand, where there need to be limitations. And eventually the phrase, the hunger that you have is really a hunger for God. Yeah. It might take 20 years, but I hope and I pray and I believe that it'll come back to them, and it'll click at some point. Yes. And it'll be different for all of them. But
and it's already happening, which is so beautiful. So well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to share?
I just think the only thing else I would want to say is that it's really important to remember as a mom that fasting is an external thing, right? Like you can see there are rules, there are things you can give up, there are things that you put in place that are external. But always as a mom, we're worried about what's going on in their heart. Yes. And so I know for sure that I've had experiences where I want to be successful as the mom helping them learn to fast, that I've totally misplaced that, and that I've been more focused on the actual external piece of it and the following of the rule that we set or whatever. And have had to face that piece of it and say like, oh, actually it's not, like this is about your heart. You know, in Isaiah it talks about you can fast and you can do all of these things, but if your heart is not there, if you're not if you're not taking care of people, and if you're speaking to each other without love, like it doesn't matter. So I think I think your kids probably most of the time, I think kids are more capable of they're capable of more than we actually ask of them most of the time. Absolutely. But also, just remembering that it's such a growing process, and the other thing is just that they're going to learn more from watching you, and from the way that you speak. When they're struggling about something, or they're really having a hard time. Having a mom who says like, I'm going to pray about that for you, or even I'm gonna take that on as a fast. I'm gonna fast for this, this afternoon every week, or from this certain thing on your behalf, or even on someone else's behalf. They're gonna see you living that out, and that's really hard, because that means that it has to really take root in our hearts. Yes, absolutely. So
That's such a good suggestion. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So many beautiful things. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. Thank you for meeting with me today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Well, what a beautiful conversation Sam and I had. And actually, we continued the conversation even after the cameras turned off. And Sam made some really beautiful points about how, as parents, it's not our responsibility how our children decide to respond to the Lord, but it's our job to create order and boundaries that instill the why of fasting, the heart of fasting, and to create order and boundaries that help them to learn how to fast. We also talked about how when we fast, we don't do it to earn favor with the Lord. We do it to clear space so that we can make space for the graces that the Lord wants to pour out upon us. We're not doing it to make ourselves more worthy. We're humbling ourselves so that we can approach Him with a more clear understanding of our need for a Redeemer. So this was just such a beautiful conversation. We also talked about how their family does abstain from meat on Fridays and how this makes the feast days that fall on a Friday when you are allowed to have meat so special and just extra exciting for the families. And we do that too in our home. What a gift to have Sam on talking with us. So this wraps up our summer fasting series. It's been a joy to bring you all of these experts in our local area to share their gifts and experiences and knowledge on these various subjects. So the fast will wrap up on the feast day of Saints Peter and Paul on June 29th. So for these next few days, maybe you feel called to increase your rigor in fasting, to really kind of buckle down on the things that maybe you've committed to at the beginning of the month that weren't so easy, over the last several weeks. And I just refer back to the interview that I did with Brian, my husband, to just simply call out to the Lord for help in your times of need. Fasting isn't supposed to be easy. It is supposed to be a sacrifice so that we can clear space to receive the graces from the Lord, as Sam said. And so in doing that, it's our human selves, our human attachments do get in the way, and it's a little bit of a struggle. So just call out to the Lord for help. And thank you so much for joining us. We've really, really appreciated it. Feel free to reach out. We feel at the Regina Caeli Clinic that your spiritual health and your physical health are tied directly together. This is what Regina Caeli Clinic is all about. So if you're interested in learning more about what Regina Caeli has to offer, please feel free to call our office at 603-409-6187. We're happy to talk to you about that. I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer Lent, and we'll see you for our next video series next month, which will be on identifying and eliminating toxins. So God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Wow, so that was so fantastic. We're so appreciative of Sam for meeting with us and talking with us about how fasting works in her home. What a beautiful testimony. And I just want to say a special thanks to everybody who's joined us throughout this Summer Lent series. It truly has been a blessing. We're so grateful to all of you for tuning in and setting some time aside to maybe learn and grow in your fasting journey and therefore grow closer to the Lord. I hope this has been a blessing for you. I hope we've given you some tools for success. Certainly save this series. We'll be sharing it again during Lent as we lead up to Easter in the springtime, and wishing you all the best blessings, fortitude, and strength as you finish out this fasting series, praying God's blessings upon you as you enter into that journey, as you close out that journey in the next few days. We really look forward to hearing from you. God bless.